We're going to get back to the old America. That's got to be the Democrats' part of the bargain. Stop coming up with radically new and often terrible ideas, and then in the next breath insist there be no debate about any of it. That if you don't see it right away and go along, you're bad, stupid, and deplorable. As if you were saying, duh, 2 + 2 = 5. Isn't that obvious? Yeah, it's obvious you can't add. You can't just say shit. Math is racist, queers for Palestine, looting is cool, healthy at any weight. If the men's football team played the women's team, it would be a tie.
The Democratic Party appears to be facing significant headwinds, and Bill Maher believes he understands the reason. On a recent episode of Real Time with Bill Maher, the veteran commentator offered a blunt assessment of why he thinks the party has struggled to maintain momentum nationwide. With midterm elections approaching and 2028 already part of the conversation, Maher cautioned that without a serious strategic reset, the DNC could face more setbacks ahead. In his view, repeating the same messaging and tactics may carry serious political consequences. As always, make sure to subscribe, get comfortable, and let's break this down step by step.
I think most liberals are insane, but neither do they make it clear they disapprove of the ones who are, and their cowardice in not marginalizing their own crazies has been their downfall. I couldn't get Neil deGrasse Tyson, a genius scientist and preeminent scientific voice in the media, to agree that it was ridiculous for Scientific American and The Atlantic to be claiming that separating sports by sex doesn't make sense. Yes, it does. Actually, it makes perfect sense. And it's obvious that it does.
Maher begins by zeroing in on what he considers a core strategic flaw. From his perspective, the issue goes beyond simple communication problems. He argues that aggressively promoting ideas many voters see as disconnected from scientific consensus or everyday reality risks pushing away moderates. When party leaders align themselves with positions that feel overly ideological, he suggests they may unintentionally distance the crucial middle ground. Maher also notes that respected intellectual figures sometimes get drawn into these debates, which can blur distinctions between empirical science and cultural advocacy. To him, that overlap creates confusion for voters who expect clear boundaries between research and rhetoric. His broader warning is straightforward. When cultural disputes overshadow practical economic concerns, polling numbers and electoral performance can begin to slip.
And there's a lot of stuff like that on the left. And when conservatives see it, they say, I'm sorry, we're just not going to go along with reinventing society, often pointlessly, even if we have to cancel democracy to do it. That's what they're saying. They see gender as only a construct and sex is assigned at birth, and they say, we're not doing that. Transing kids by self-diagnosis with no age limit, no parental notification, and no acknowledgement of social contagion, not doing it. Asylum now covers any reason for anyone to come to America, not doing it.
Maher expands on this argument by pointing to specific policy discussions that he believes have complicated the party's broader appeal. He suggests that some voters feel unsettled when messaging appears to challenge long-standing scientific or historical frameworks too abruptly. In particular, he highlights debates surrounding gender identity and youth policy as examples of topics that have become highly visible and politically charged. Conversations about parental involvement, medical decision-making, and social norms have moved from niche circles into mainstream political discourse. Maher's concern is that emphasizing these divisive cultural flashpoints may overshadow areas where broader agreement exists, such as economic reform or governance priorities. In his estimation, leaning too heavily into polarizing topics could weaken support among independents who might otherwise align with the party on other issues.
Natural immunity doesn't count anymore. Whiteness is toxic. Penises in women's prisons. Welcoming the Intifada. We're not doing it. And so, folks, if we are ever going to get back to the old America, that's got to be the Democrats' part of the bargain. Stop coming up with radically new and often terrible ideas, and then in the next breath, insist there be no debate about any of it.
Ultimately, Maher calls on Democrats to reconsider their approach by embracing open dialogue rather than rigid framing. He argues that political resilience comes from testing ideas publicly, not shielding them from scrutiny. According to Maher, Some voters perceive the party as increasingly intolerant of internal disagreement, creating the impression that only certain viewpoints are acceptable. He warns that this dynamic can produce an echo chamber, energizing loyal supporters while alienating undecided voters who value robust discussion. Maher believes rebuilding trust requires confidence, engaging critics directly instead of dismissing them. In his view, progress depends on transparency, debate, and the willingness to confront difficult conversations head-on rather than avoiding them.
You don't see it right away and go along, you're bad, stupid, and deplorable. As if you were saying, duh, 2 + 2 = 5, isn't that obvious? Yeah, it's obvious you can't add. You can't just say math is racist, queers for Palestine, looting is cool, healthy at any weight. If the men's football team played the women's team, it would be a tie. You can't just say
Maher also expresses concern that rhetoric from segments of the political left has intensified to a degree that even longtime liberals feel uneasy. What troubles him most is the perception that some positions are presented as unquestionable rather than open for discussion. When disagreement is framed as moral failure instead of intellectual difference, he argues, democratic exchange suffers. Critics of this climate say it can create hesitation among individuals who fear social backlash for voicing alternative views. Instead of encouraging persuasion through dialogue, the atmosphere can feel restrictive. Maher's frustration centers on the belief that durable political support is earned through argument and understanding, not pressure. When debate narrows and only one perspective dominates, voters may feel sidelined, and that sense of exclusion can carry weight at election time.
They have gone out of their way to post messages on social media about the current Trump administration and what's happening to American lives. The problem is they're all literally saying the same damn thing. Don't believe me? Check it out.
If I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
That ain't true. That's what you just heard. Since day one of Donald Trump's presidency, prices are not down, they're up. Inflation is getting worse, not better. The prices of grocery, gas, household
Now you see why Stephen A. Smith was in the polls as a presidential candidate? You see what I'm talking about? You see that idiocy right there? You talk about something, people being told.
Stephen A. Smith adds another layer to the conversation by highlighting what he considers a miscalculation within Democratic strategy: constant focus on criticizing Donald Trump. Smith argues that relentless outrage can lose effectiveness when it becomes predictable. He notes that heavy criticism of Trump existed even before his presidency, yet that strategy did not prevent his electoral victory. What surprises Smith is that, despite that outcome, some leaders appear to rely on the same approach. Instead of centering their platform on forward-looking solutions, they often return to reacting to Trump's actions. Smith believes voters are searching for leadership and concrete answers, not just opposition messaging or ongoing political hostility.
Would 22 Democratic senators be literally echoing the same thing and think that would resonate with the American people? All it shows is that the same fabric of our democracy is unchanging in the eyes of some of these officials, and as a result, the constituency they represent, which is why Donald Trump is in office. What, do I have to come up to Capitol Hill and give you lessons? Seriously, you don't get it? All you did, Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, Chuck Schumer. Let's all get together, let's put this in a prompter, and all together, albeit in separate rooms, we'll grab a microphone and say the same damn thing. And that's what's going to resonate with the American people. And then you wonder why you're no longer in power.
Smith further critiques what he sees as inconsistency within top Democratic leadership. He suggests that some public responses feel carefully staged, designed to generate media attention more than lasting reform. Meanwhile, many Americans continue grappling with inflation, job uncertainty, and rising living costs. Smith argues that voters can distinguish between symbolic gestures and substantive policy efforts. When leadership appears overly focused on presentation, trust can erode. He maintains that reconnecting with voters requires direct engagement with everyday concerns and visible action. In his view, authenticity grows from consistent results rather than highly produced moments crafted for headlines.
Schumer and the typical politicians, oh, inflation is high. Oh, look at them pointing the fingers at the migrants. Oh, look at them blaming immigration. They don't care about you. Oh, by the way, look, they don't care about well, why would you bother people from the LGBTQ community? Why would you bother folks with transgender and all this? Why would you do that? That is what the Democrats say. That's what most politicians would say. Here's Trump. They're pieces of shit. They don't give a about you. It's rigged. They've hoodwinked you all the time. They think you're a freaking joke. They give you the anytime they want to. Here's Trump. Them. They ain't worth shit.
Drawing a contrast, Smith describes Donald Trump's communication style as direct and decisive, qualities he believes resonate with certain voters. According to Smith, Trump identifies issues plainly and promises action in a way that projects clarity. Whether one supports his policies or not, Smith argues that many perceive him as saying exactly what he intends. By comparison, Smith criticizes the DNC for messaging he views as overly calculated or cautious. That perceived caution can foster skepticism about transparency. For Smith, authenticity has become a form of political currency. Voters gravitate toward leaders they consider straightforward, while ambiguity may gradually weaken credibility.
You know what his followers say? Yeah, that's how we want you talking to those politicians who've been stealing our money all of these years. It's not what he says. It's how he says it. He does it with vitriol and venom to show a disrespect to politicians who the public have no respect for because they feel they've been hoodwinked by those same politicians. He's using it to separate himself from the cesspool that is Capitol Hill. And how does Capitol Hill respond? By showing them they're still Capitol Hill.
Smith also contends that Bill Maher taps into a broader frustration many Americans feel toward the political establishment. Maher frequently critiques leaders across party lines, using direct language that appeals to audiences who feel overlooked. Smith believes this willingness to challenge authority enhances Maher's credibility. He positions himself as independent-minded rather than strictly partisan. In contrast, Smith suggests that Democratic leadership sometimes appears restrained, which can be interpreted as uncertainty. In a climate marked by distrust, Smith argues that clarity and bold engagement stand out. For him, the takeaway is that authenticity combined with open confrontation of difficult issues can restore confidence among skeptical voters.
See me on The View Tuesday afternoon? Did you see when they said, we don't believe there's a Trump mandate? I said, oh, really? Did you see the former press secretary for the White House come on? I think Stephen A is wrong. I don't believe what he said is correct. Donald Trump has the lowest approval ratings in the first month or so, or the 2 months of a presidency in American history. Oh, really? But didn't he win all the swing states? Didn't his popularity elevate within 89% of the counties in the United States of America? Didn't his popularity elevate within the Black community, the Hispanic community, and the young voter?
Taken together, the perspectives of Bill Maher and Stephen A. Smith highlight what they see as a widening disconnect between party leadership and segments of the electorate. Despite coming from different professional backgrounds, both emphasize similar themes. Voters want clarity, solutions, and transparent debate. They argue that ideological rigidity, performative moments, and constant outrage may not resonate as strongly as direct engagement. At the same time, they attribute part of Trump's appeal to decisiveness and perceived authenticity. Their shared warning is straightforward. If Democrats avoid open discussion and fail to address voter concerns directly, they could continue losing ground. For Maher and Smith, the path forward centers on listening, rebuilding trust, and prioritizing substance over spectacle before frustration solidifies into long-term electoral consequences. And that brings us to the end of today's breakdown. If you found this analysis valuable, be sure to like the video and subscribe for more in-depth discussions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.